With 2024 quickly coming to an end, it becomes inevitable to start thinking about what Nintendo's output will look like in the year 2025. The major question on everybody's mind is when will we see the end of the Nintendo Switch as we know it, and the start of the next-gen Nintendo Switch successor. We know that the new console will be revealed by the end of March, which at this point is only a few months away. So barring any last-minute change of plans, a reveal showcase could realistically come anytime after the holidays. But even without the imminent arrival of next-gen hardware, there are still plenty of games we already know about that are coming to Nintendo Switch in 2025, many of which are extremely exciting and have been highly anticipated for quite some time now. Today, we're going to be discussing Nintendo's 2025 game lineup, including both currently announced titles and a few hypotheticals that could make sense for the big end to release within the next 12 months. Let's get right into it. The first of these currently known 2025 titles is Donkey Kong Country Returns HD, arriving on January 16th. While Returns HD might not seem like much at first glance, when you think about it, this is a brilliant release from Nintendo. First and most obviously, it will be the definitive way to play Retro Studios' acclaimed franchise revival going forward. Plus, it will now be accessible to new and old fans alike on Nintendo Switch. And while this is not quite as exciting as a new game in the series, it's definitely a welcome addition to the Switch game library, seeing as the system can also play both the classic Rare developed trilogy and the most recent entry, Tropical Freeze. It's also a smart move from Nintendo because the Donkey Kong Country section of Super Nintendo World at Universal Studios Japan has opened its doors just a few days ago, and a similar park is opening in America sometime next year. Of course, there's no direct correlation here, but you have to imagine that Nintendo wanted some sort of new Donkey Kong release on store shelves to coincide with this part of the park opening. It's not that the theme park crowds will automatically rush to buy the new video game in droves, but it's great for awareness of the Donkey Kong brand, and to create some form of attachment to the character, especially from a younger audience. Children who are far too young to have experienced Returns in its heyday will see a new Donkey Kong game and know no difference. You have to imagine the timing here is all calculated, and I'd be curious to see if it leads to any tangible impact on sales for an otherwise routine remaster for Nintendo this generation. And for everyone else, Returns HD will surely be a good time, whether you're playing or replaying it this winter. Next, we have to talk about one of the big announcements from the last few months, and that's Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition. Monolith Soft's now revealed next project is set to arrive on Nintendo Switch March 20th, 2025. This is a gigantic open-world RPG that lends itself to dozens and dozens, if not hundreds of hours of playtime. And just like what we talked about for Donkey Kong, X's triumphant return means that all Xenoblade games will soon be playable on Nintendo Switch as well. To be honest, with the size and scope of this game, and with how good the original X already looked on Wii U, I didn't think that we'd see a remake on the current Switch platform. I thought there was a good chance we'd see X again, but maybe it was better suited for higher horsepower on a Switch successor. But looking at the established release pattern of Monolith Soft, they were due for something in 2025. In any case, X Definitive Edition is in my opinion a best case scenario. If it stays true to its moniker of being a definitive edition, then I think we can expect similar quality of life features and new story content with potentially massive implications. That's what we saw back in 2020 with the definitive edition of Xenoblade 1. It's extremely exciting to think that this definitive edition could follow a similar path. While the graphical update isn't as drastic of a glow-up as what we saw with Xenoblade 1, this is to be expected, since Xenoblade Chronicles is a standard definition Nintendo Wii game, completely overhauled into full HD on Switch. Xenoblade Chronicles X was already an impressive HD game on Nintendo Wii U, a console that's pretty on par with the Switch spec-wise, leading to some diminishing returns with the remake. A new scene in the reveal trailer implies that things will change a bit, most likely with some added story content that takes place after the main events of Xenoblade X. similar to the future connected epilogue in the 2020 release. We'll just have to wait and see. But the prospect of reaching the end of March and potentially knowing what the Switch successor looks like and having a new version of Xenoblade X is an exciting one, no doubt. It's definitely going to be a good couple of months. And then there are a few confirmed 2025 titles without confirmed release dates. One we've known about for quite some time is Pokemon Legends ZA. As of recording this, the game is still shrouded in mystery. Based on the name, it's safe to assume that ZA will be a follow-up to 2022's experimental Pokemon Legends Arceus. This likely means that gameplay will differ quite a bit from what we're used to in the version titles. For example, Arceus featured more action elements, like aiming and throwing Pokeballs in real time. It's hard to say right now since we've yet to see any gameplay footage, but I think ZA could certainly follow suit. Pokemon titles tend to release during the holiday period in November, so I wouldn't be surprised if we had to wait until late next year to get our hands on Pokemon Legends ZA. But since we've known about it for so long now, maybe there's a chance we'll see it earlier. Pokemon Legends Arceus came out very early in the year, having a January 2022 release date. Maybe Legends ZA will also break the trend and come out much earlier than expected. If it's going to be one of the final Switch games before the next-gen system arrives, then I can definitely see it. But I could also see ZA arriving post-launch of the Switch successor too. The Pokemon franchise has consistently released games a generation behind to ensure they were coming out to the biggest install base possible. I remember Pokemon Crystal coming to Game Boy Color when I already had my Game Boy Advance, playing Pokemon Black 2 and White 2 on my 3DS even though they were for the original DS, and buying Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon for 3DS when I already had my Switch. It wouldn't be surprising at all to see Pokemon Legends ZA come to the current Switch, even late next year when we might already be deep in the throes of next gen. If this does happen, with backwards compatibility now confirmed on the Nintendo Switch successor, everyone who adopts the new system early will still be able to enjoy ZA on it anyways. One thing we can look forward to in the shorter term is some new details arriving by the end of February at the latest. Pokemon Day takes place on February 27th, and it's on this day that we can count on a Pokemon Presents video presentation, one that will be giving us details on upcoming titles. Without a doubt, Legends ZA will be shown there in 2025. The only question is, will we see the game before then or not? Revealed in dramatic fashion to close out the June 2024 Nintendo Direct, Metroid Prime 4 Beyond is the last currently announced title we know is coming in 2025. It's been a long time coming for Metroid Prime 4, ever since its reveal at the beginning of the generation and development restarting in early 2019. Nintendo and Retro Studios have been crafting this game for quite a while now. It's clear that a lot of love and care is going in to developing the fourth numbered title in the Metroid Prime series and the first since 2016. The footage we've seen is already so impressive. Visually, it'll be right up there with Prime Remastered as one of the best looking games on Nintendo Switch. The little bits we've seen, all the environments and animations are a thing of beauty, and gameplay wise, it looks to retain the bones of what makes a Metroid Prime game, the things we've become accustomed to through the first 3 games in the series. We're sticking with the first person perspective, exploring dense environments, and learning about the world through the use of the scan visor. We've already seen as such in this early gameplay footage. I'd also imagine there's some sort of narrative through line or references tied to earlier games in the Metroid Prime series. This is made pretty clear with the appearance of a certain known character in the cinematic portion of the reveal trailer. My hunch is that Metroid Prime 4 Beyond will arrive in May or later, most likely after the Nintendo Switch successor has become a known quantity. It may also be the last AAA new release developed solely for Nintendo Switch, but we don't really know that for sure, and Nintendo could always surprise us with an info drop sometime soon and a release date that's earlier than anyone's expecting. I mean, they've had plenty of time to develop and polish it. As a longtime longtime Metroid fan, this one is easily in my top 2 most anticipated games right now, and I'm sure many of you out there feel the same way. I'm very happy we'll soon get our hands on it, hopefully in the not too distant future. Trying to predict any other 2025 titles at this point is pretty difficult, and the fact that a next generation launch is coming soon makes it even tougher. Where will the generational cutoff be? How much longer will Nintendo keep making Switch games into the life of the successor? History tells us that 1 or 2 years is a safe bet, so we can assume the current Switch isn't quite done yet, and there is room to speculate. It might be a smart strategy for Nintendo to develop most of their new experiences for the next console, and continue to support the current Switch heavily through remakes and remasters. We saw this at the tail end of the 3DS generation, and we're even starting to see it now with their remaster-heavy 2024 lineup that suggests this as well. I wouldn't mind this at all, since it means games from Nintendo's classic library would be made accessible going into the future, since we now know the successor will be fully backwards compatible with Switch software. Nintendo could give us many phenomenal titles this way, all while supporting their hybrid console that's currently in the hands of 144 million and counting. We've seen quite a few Mario titles come to Nintendo Switch recently, but don't you think there's room for something like a new Super Mario Bros. Wii remake? 2D Mario is always a solid seller. We needn't look further than the success of New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe and Super Mario Bros. Wonder recently. What's the harm of one more next holiday season that touts the 4-player co-op it was made famous for? The Kirby games from 3DS and Yoshi's Woolly World are other safe bets for a highly successful re-release. And this could also include games that many fans have been clamoring for, like The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker or Twilight Princess HD. If there has been one constant this generation, it's been Nintendo's best games from Wii U making their way over to Switch. And the Wii U games are still coming, even into next year. Look no further than Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition as an example. The Wind Waker and Twilight Princess HD are easy smash hits to bring to a modern Nintendo platform, and I wouldn't rule out a 2025 release for either of these titles, maybe even both. Metroid Primes 2 and 3 are a couple other sought-after titles many would love to see get another re-release. And with Metroid Prime 4 Beyond on the horizon, the timing couldn't be better for it. Because Metroid Prime 4 will likely be released less than a year from now, it seems like it might be too late for the previous 2 titles to arrive on Switch in some fashion. However, we could have said the same thing last year with the Pikmin 4 situation, but lo and behold, just a month before Pikmin 4's release, we got the surprise drop of Pikmin 1+2. Could we be in for a similar situation with the Metroid Prime series next year? Whether they are full remasters like 2023's beautification of the original game, or more simple HD versions a la Pikmin 1 and 2, it makes all the sense in the world to make the first 3 games readily available before Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, to help minimize the number of players that the 4 in the title might scare off at release. There's another Wii U port I can think of that might make sense to bring over to Nintendo Switch in its latter days. This is, of course, from a franchise that has skipped this entire generation, the Star Fox series. If there is no new Star Fox game in development right now, then how about bringing one of the last remaining Wii U stalwarts, Star Fox Zero, over to Nintendo Switch with updated controls? Zero utilized the unique features of the Wii U gamepad extensively, and that is something that can't be directly translated to Nintendo Switch. That being said, there are many examples of Wii U games that have been successfully modified and brought over to Switch with minimal loss. Pikmin 3 Deluxe and the upcoming Xenoblade Chronicles X are just a few examples, both utilizing the gamepad quite a bit in their original forms. With this, there is nothing stopping Star Fox's return to modern consoles. And if the reason it's been so long is that Nintendo doesn't have the requisite ideas to create a brand new experience, then leaning on a past title could be a great way to represent the franchise this generation. If we look at the series release timeline, there is also precedent for a new Fire Emblem remake to come in 2025. A Fire Emblem game could be an amazing addition to the 2025 lineup to satisfy the more hardcore audience, especially during a next-gen launch year that might be filled with launch window games with a more broad appeal. 2025 could bring us the heavily rumored Fire Emblem 4 remake, Genealogy of the Holy War. Realistically, any of the older Fire Emblem games could be remade, especially those that were never localized in the West, but FE4 has been the one in the rumor mill as of late. I don't think we'll have to wait too much longer before the Fire Emblem series returns in some way, and I could see this happening on either the current Switch or its successor without much drawback. For me, a Fire Emblem Echoes game is high on my list of possible Nintendo releases for 2025. Last generation, it came 2 years following the last new numbered entry, and seeing as we're just about 2 years past the release of Engage in 2023, 2025 is looking bright for Fire Emblem 4 Remake. With the Switch successor likely to release in 2025, we also have to talk about its potential launch and launch window titles. Since Tears of the Kingdom exists, I don't think there's any chance a new 3D Zelda will headline the launch like Breath of the Wild did in 2017. And with Pokemon Legends ZA known to be coming to the current Switch, I don't see that as a launch title either. So with two of their biggest franchises seemingly out of contention, that leaves one obvious choice to launch with the Nintendo Switch successor, and that is of course Mario. And there are two viable options here: a brand new 3D Mario platformer similar to Odyssey, or a new entry in the Mario Kart series. The first one since the original Mario Kart 8 in 2014. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is the highest selling game on Nintendo Switch by a considerable margin, and it's certainly a rational train of thought to launch the next console with the biggest system seller from the first. But I think a new Mario Kart does face some challenges when it comes to being a launch title. It's never been a launch title before, and I think a big reason for this is its heavy focus on multiplayer play. Traditionally, Nintendo launches consoles with a major single-player game, a substantial single-player offering to sustain the early adopters. Wii, 3DS, and Switch all launched alongside 3D Zeldas, and the SNES, N64, and Wii U all came with brand new Mario platformers. I don't see the Switch successor bucking this trend, and since we've just reached 7 years since Super Mario Odyssey, a new one is overdue. Now, while I don't believe Mario Kart would ever launch the console on its own, that doesn't mean we won't see it early on in the life cycle of the successor. I firmly believe Nintendo is going to want to get its biggest hits over to the new console as quickly as possible. So while 3D Mario is there to satisfy on launch day, something like a new Mario Kart could be there alongside it, or even a couple weeks down the road to help keep the momentum going. Then it's only a matter of time until games like Smash, Splatoon, and Animal Crossing come roaring in to help lift the console further off the ground. All of these games could certainly be targeting a 2025 release, and are fair game to be featured in a Switch successor blowout presentation sometime this year. But what do you think? What Nintendo games are you most excited for in 2025? Do you think it's shaping up to be a good year, or do you still need to see more? With the games we already know about, plus the potential of a next-gen blowout, I think we could be in for one of the best years in recent memory. Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below, and let's use this video as a place to discuss all of our Nintendo speculation about the year to come. If you like this, then remember to subscribe, as I hope to share the joy of Nintendo games by discussing them with all the fans out there like myself. If you want Nintendo videos to listen to help pass the time until the next big release, then I think you're in the right place. Thanks as always for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.